Good evening, my beautiful listeners. Good evening. You are listening to Global Rainbow live in Italy, and today we have our special guest, that's Honorable Omar Jammeh. Mr. Jammeh, you welcome to Global Rainbow TV. And it's a pleasure to have you here with us. Our audience are listening to you, and I already informed them that we'll having discussion with you, an interview with you. Our interview is going to center on youth empowerment, food security in the country, and also the National Assembly members, their role in national unity. Mr. Honorable Jammeh, before we go further, can you kindly introduce yourself to our beautiful listeners?
Thank you very much, Usman. Good evening to the listeners. My name is Omar Jammeh, National Assembly member for Janjangbureh constituency.
Okay. I guess the audience here, you are hearing the voice of Honorable, I guess so. Can you write to me if you are hearing his voice? Yeah, Honorable, thank you so much for that wonderful introduction. Honorable, today we are going to discuss about youth empowerment. As I said earlier on, we will talk about food security and National Assembly, the members, their role in national unity. First of all, I would like to ask you, we are going to talk about youth empowerment. Honorable, considering the population of the Gambia is 2 million people, and the 3/4 of these 2 million people are youth. They are men and women. Do you think the current government is empowering the youth of the country, Honorable?
Thank you very much, Usman. Thank you for having me on your platform. And also in response to your question with regards to empowering young people in the country, and also contrasting it with the national population. Yes, I want to agree with you that with the government population, over 60% are young people, and as such, I wouldn't dispute the fact that investing in young people is indeed very primary. And coming to what government is doing for young people, I wouldn't say actually they're doing that to indeed empower the cream of the nation. But then again, I believe when it comes to development, it's always a process, it's always an ongoing process. So as such, even though resources are limited, even though the government is not paying up to the young people, certain reference on what is really being catered for the young people. I also want to believe that in the opposite side, looking at the new strategies, looking at the new initiatives, government is actually doing their part to really support those young people that really need the support. But again, notwithstanding, I think a lot more efforts are indeed needed to meet the expectations.
Okay, so you want to tell me that the government is not doing much to the youth of the country, because if you see the figures of Gambian youth migrating from the Gambia to Europe, is really alarming, especially these days. And that could be another factor of government not doing a lot of things to the youth. Do you think, what are some of the things that government can venture into to help these young youth, to discourage them from going to these back ways?
Yes, as I said earlier, the evidence are indeed clear. And to say government is not really doing that much. And to look at some of the examples like what you have just cited, having young people drifting from the Gambia to Europe, that is even the external drifting. But again, also looking at the numbers that are migrating from our rural communities to the urban areas would also serve as clear evidence to tell you that the young people are not really getting what they need on the table. For me, to really get there would require government to craft new policies, new strategies that would also match with the need and aspiration of our young people. And one of which could be industrializing, either the agricultural system, the production system, you name it. And I believe with such initiatives could really go a long way to unlock new potentials for young people. And also, most importantly, with such initiatives would go a long way to create a sustainable employment for our young people. Also looking at other sectors, for example, the life skill sector or the skill sector, I want to strongly believe that if government should really invest in that sector, it will also enhance employment, not just employment by the government, but also it will enhance self-employment among the young people and promote entrepreneurial entities amongst the young people. I also want to believe that there are also other potentials. Looking at the sporting sector, I think there are huge potentials as well if the government can invest in actually developing sports as an enterprise. It shouldn't just be about, let's say, playing football. And if I say sports is indeed very diverse, it's not just going to be on football, but equally looking at other sporting disciplines. If investments are directed to those areas, I believe it will equally enhance employment among the young people and also minimize rural-urban drift.
Exactly.
Besides rural-urban drift, it will also minimize migration to Europe. And, basically we have a lot of things that the government can actually do. Let's look at the River Gambia. It has a lot of potentials. It is untapped.
Yes, Honorable, sorry, we will be coming to that area later, but for the meantime, let's concentrate on youth empowerment. Now, that's right, but now when we look at the Gambia, the nature of Gambia, I guess, since Barrow came to place and even Jammeh's time, there are a lot of youth empowerment, youth entrepreneurship training. But the problem of Gambia is there is no sustainability. When they bring the project to the youths and they train the youths to do something, the projects will go, and at the end of the day, there will be no sustainability. Like the parliament, this fifth legislative. Now, what are the role of National Assembly members to make sure that the projects that are there for the youth are well implemented and are well evaluated?
Thank you very much, Mr. once again for that question. It is very true that Parliament has a role when it comes to national development. And one of our responsibilities is to exercise oversight over the executive, not just over the executive, but again on any other institution that works under the umbrella of the Gambian government. So projects that comes for development initiatives in the name of young people, yes, we equally have an oversight over them. And what we do with them is to engage them in their respective project implementations to ascertain the progress of work, to ascertain the implementation of their funds or budgets, and also to scrutinize through the beneficiaries as to what is expected to their project these lines are really reflecting on the lives of the people. Specifically with projects, for me, sometimes I feel our major problem here is, yes, as you have rightly alluded earlier, most of these projects would come, almost all of them would be doing the same thing. For example, training on entrepreneurship. Every other project you would see will go out there saying they want to offer capacity on entrepreneurship for young people. But then again, they forget that after providing training for young people, those young people always need capital to start a business.
Exactly.
Because if you train me on entrepreneurship, my ultimate objective or goal would be to become an active business player. Exactly. So if I cannot have access to those funds, it becomes a problem. And most of those organizations or institutions, I would rather say, that are offering those trainings, many a times you will realize that they don't have the capital to support, let's say, even 50% of those trainees to go out there and practicalize what they have learned from the classroom. So basically, we have a whole lot of issues around our institutions that requires, some rethinking, redesigning, and also ensuring that some of these resources that are available to young people would serve a purpose, but then not otherwise. So, at Parliament, yes, it's true, as much as we have an oversight over some of these institutions, you will equally realize that our work is always a process. And some of these bureaucracies, you will come to realize that they don't work out as one would expect. For the simple reason is time is always not on our side. Looking at the plenary, looking at the time given now for we to conduct oversight over institutions that are custodian of national resources. But again, we're still making efforts to ensure we do the needful engagement with some of these institutions that are either implementing projects that are grants or institutions under the relevant ministries that are also custodians of the national budget when it comes to implementation on youth matters. So basically, all that we try to do here is to work with some of these institutions amicably to see as to how we can redirect the way they implement projects and also enhance their sustainability in some of the projects they implement.
Yeah, thank you so much. And I hope what you have said is right. Project implementation is easy, but sustainability is the problem in the Gambia. And when the projects are not sustainable, then the youth must have lived. They must have lived. If we want to empower youth, if we want to stop this illegal migration, therefore the projects in the Gambia for the youth need to have sustainability. Without that, we cannot go anywhere. And we hope the youth, we hope that the National Assembly, the member of National Assembly, can work with all those project owners and the government to make sure that every project that comes to the Gambia goes to the youth and the money is being fully given to the youth for the money to be used for its purpose. Honorable, if I may ask you, the current government and the National Assembly members, to me, I guess they have failed the youth of the country. Looking at the situation of people living in the diaspora, diaspora people there are still complaining of not, voting into the national elections, Honorable. What is your thought about that?
Thank you very much. And you cannot talk about the Gambia and actually forget about the diaspora community. And looking at the contribution that the diaspora is doing, looking at the remittance that they're contributing to the national budget is indeed very huge.
Yes.
And I would say that the loan should even qualify them to decide on how national issues actually runs. And then to start with, I think elections would be one thing that the diaspora community should be allowed to participate and equally exercise their franchise as citizens. But again, I wouldn't say the National Assembly has failed Gambians. And the reason why I am saying this is simply because I believe as a parliament, as parliamentarians, we really recognize the efforts of the diaspora community, and we think it would be indeed ideal to have them to decide on elections. But again, we are tied with the Constitution. We are constrained with the Constitution. And not just the Constitution, equally we are tied with the electoral laws of this nation. And I believe, as I said, parliamentary work is a process. We hope and pray that someday we will get the electoral bill to the National Assembly. Suppose it is laid before the National Assembly and the sixth legislative reject it, then there we can conclude that the National Assembly has failed Gambians, more especially with those that are in the diaspora.
Okay.
However, I believe as the processes are ongoing, more especially around the Constitution, we are hoping that there will be a resurrection of the Constitution, and if that should come, or some constitutional amendment before the next presidential elections, that would also give us the opportunity to decide whether the diaspora community will come and vote. And, you know, for me as an individual, I don't think such a legislation will come before the parliament and I go against it. And this is what I expect, or I would expect from every other honorable member to do, by giving their blessings to a law that would help to get the diaspora community to participate in national development and equally have a voice.
I think, Honorable, thank you so much. I think this point is very, very important, because if you look at the Gambian diaspora, they are contributing a lot into national development, and the remittance that they send every year in the Gambia is very huge. And I think the parliament need to consider that, to call on the diaspora, to call on the government to make sure that the people of the diaspora vote. So the parliament should make sure that they have at least a private bill, because we have seen they have brought a lot of, several private bill in the parliament where people vote for it. So diaspora need to go and vote. Can you hear me? I think Honorable has gone. Okay, yes. Let's continue. Very soon we will leave you, because these days you have been tired in the National Assembly. Yes, you rightly mentioned of this electoral reform, the government to come with certain issues so that diaspora can also vote. We are waiting for that, definitely. The diaspora wanted to vote. We are waiting for that. We don't know when shall it be, but we are waiting for that. Now, let's go to the food security, Honorable. Honorable, Gambians are very hungry. I don't know whether you know it or not.
Indeed.
Yes.
I know it, and I can attest to the fact that food or survival is a serious challenge for Gambians.
Okay. Now, what can Parliament do? What can Parliament do in their own capacity to make sure that Gambians are hunger-free?
Yeah, the truth of the matter here is Parliament have been making efforts legislative or legislator, what they did was to commit over $100 million to the Ministry of Agriculture in enhancing farming or agriculture in the country. Last December, during the budget, over 40 million or so was equally committed to the Ministry of Agriculture, different from the approvals they get as per their budget line. That is for 2023 or for the year under review. But for me, from a personal point of view, I think the Ministry of Agriculture still needs to make more efforts in enhancing agriculture in the country. For me, in the Gambia here, we have a problem. And our problem here is we don't want to industrialize. We don't want to mechanize agriculture. We don't want to look at integrated agriculture that would help every other Gambian not just to get affordable food, but equally a healthy food. Looking at, the way we are engaged in agriculture. But the truth here is, I think the executive and the technicians within the Ministry of Agriculture just need to do us a favor by ensuring that
Yes, I'm hearing you. Somebody's calling. Yes, come on.
Yeah, so essentially, for me, agriculture need to redirect their focus and also prioritize agriculture. Imagine, we have a whole river Gambia.
Yes.
And it's untapped.
But,
so, for me, instead of importing food in this country, the best thing to do doing them. And anytime you try to engage them, all that you will hear is we are under resource, we are this, we are that, and the stories are becoming too much.
Yeah, okay. Honorable, if the Ministry of Agriculture, as you earlier said, the budget was given to them, a lot of millions has been given to them. But now, at the end of the day, you can see even if farmers, they did their harvesting, the groundnut will not be sold. Now, the Ministry of Agriculture, I guess, should come to the parliament and tell parliamentarians, the budget you give it to us, this is how we use it, with a concrete evidence, so that the parliaments can know definitely this money, the budget we have given it to them, the budget we have allocated for them, they have used the money on the right place. So if this is not done, it's going to be very difficult. The farmers will be suffering. Looking at this year raining season, there are a lot of farmers there who did not even have, a fertilizer to apply on their farm. A farmer in provinces who is thinking of three daily meals, how can he or she go and buy a fertilizer for the farm? So I guess the parliament should make sure that the Ministry of Agriculture, let them come to parliament and explain to the parliamentarian where the budget, where the money has been put into. I guess this is important.
Yeah, Usman, if you really follow the proceeding at the parliament, both at plenary and at committee level, sometime last year,
yes,
more especially when the issue of Russia-Ukraine arose, there was this increment with the cost of fertilizer.
Yeah.
From, let's say, $1,050 to $2,500.
Yes.
At Parliament, what we were able to do, more especially at the level of the committee, that is the Agriculture and Community Development or Rural Development Committee, what we were able to do was to summon the Honorable Minister of Agriculture and its stakeholders to an engagement or to a meeting at the National Assembly in order to understand the reason behind making such a huge increment on the purchase of fertilizer, and also asking them to really make a reduction on the cost. You know, as you have rightly said, if you want a poor farmer to buy fertilizer at a cost of, let's say, $1,500, $2,000, or $2,500, then meaning we are not still working towards the growth of that sector, but instead we are trying to kill the sector by bringing in policies or conditions that would discourage farmers to continue engaging in agriculture. However, there was that reduction on the cost until last year as well. The president equally made a pronouncement to say fertilizer is reduced again, I think at the cost of $1,050. That is this NPK and everything.
Yes.
And at our level, or at our individual levels, I think we are also pursuing with the Ministry of Agriculture to look at more sustainable ways or mechanisms that can drive agriculture forward. For example, shifting from using chemical fertilizers to organic fertilizers that we can always process at our backyards or at our respective farms that we can use to apply on our crops and have a healthy production than, you know, consuming foods that are not healthy. Also, I believe at parliament level, as part of our monitoring, because this year we are yet to go for monitoring, we will be able to gauge the budget that was committed to the Ministry of Agriculture, whether it was spent right. And in doing so, it's not only to gauge whether the monies were spent for the projects that they were meant for, but equally to look at whether these implementations were timely, whether they are sustainable, and whether the communities or the farmers has also take ownership of some of these things. So basically, at our level as politicians, our interest always would be to see meaningful development or growth in that sector than the way it is.
Okay. When we look at Gambia, most of the Gambians' lands we have vast lands, agricultural lands there, and we have fresh water there, honorable. And I guess if Ministry of Agriculture is more serious and they put the money into best use, into the use of agriculture, I guess only rice cultivation in the Gambia can feed the whole country. Nobody will go to bed with hunger. So I don't know whether National Assembly, this to embark on rice cultivation, whether that is part of the Select Committee for Agriculture, so that the country can embark on that, so that most of the farmers, most of the fresh water in the Gambia, we can turn them to become a rice cultivation area. I don't know whether the parliament is talking about such, so that we will stop importing rice from other countries.
Yeah, the parliament is equally looking at that, and not just the parliament, because you have a whole ministry that is charged to administer agriculture in the Gambia, and you know they are also responsible to both craft and implement a policy that will suit the need of the people. However, as a parliament, we equally have a role to ensure what is meant for the people is indeed been given to them. And as such, with the Ministry of Agriculture, they have a couple of projects that are engaged on rice production, not just engaged on rice production, but also to support farmers that are involved in rice farming. And yes, the growth might be low, For example, Maro Farm is also collaborating with the government through, a public-private partnership and what they're doing is equally boosting the rice sector. For example, what they're doing is actually, cultivating rice, using the harvest to also supply small-scale farmers to use as seedlings. And we believe with such initiatives would also enhance growth for the simple fact that some of the challenges that the farmers would cry out there is having access to seedlings or other farming, equipments or utilities that can also enhance what they're doing. So for me, at some point also, it's not only about the government, but also we need to encourage the private sector to do investment around rice production.
Yes.
We have a whole chain around the rice production sector, and also a huge potential that, if utilized, should go a long way, not only to address food sufficiency, but equally it will go a long way to enhance, economic growth in our economy.
Yes, thank you. Yeah, that's wonderful, and we hope everything go through so that Gambia can be hunger free. Honorable, recently we had that National Assembly. All of you were given a brand new vehicle. Honorable, and there are a huge amount of money being spent on those vehicles, Honorable, and it really sparkled a lot of side talks in the country. Some are saying that it's not good, some are saying that people are hungry. And to your own point of view, how do you see that those vehicles given to NAMS, where those who are having their salaries, and you have some families in the Gambia who cannot even have breakfast to eat, Honorable?
Usman, thank you very much for that honest question, and I believe I would also make a honest response. However, I wouldn't say I was given a vehicle. I would say I benefited from a car scheme.
Okay.
While I said I benefited from a car scheme, it was not 100% government funded or allocated vehicle to me as a National Assembly member.
Okay.
This cars came in a form of a scheme.
Okay.
I think in the 5th legislative, if you were keenly following, there were about 58 pickups,
yes,
or trucks that were allocated to the National Assembly.
yes,
And then there was this public outcry that why National Assembly members were receiving cars without knowing the source of those cars. And there is a political party even that declined to receive those cars because they think they didn't know the source.
yes.
So since then, there was a legislation by the fifth legislature to say, in order to avoid receiving a car or a gift from the executive, they come up with a legislation to say every NAM should have a car, but it has to be in a scheme form.
Okay.
And the scheme is like government would commit to pay half cost of the car or the fleet that would be allocated to the NAMs, and the other half would be paid by the NAMs. And this half becomes a law. It was legislated.
Okay.
We inherited it.
Yeah.
We found it that it was agreed that every NAM should be given a car, but on a condition. And for me, yes, after sounding public opinion, knowing the cost of the cars are about $2.5 million, yes, the costs are high at some point, considering the economic situation of the Gambia, but a again, I think there was equally a need for National Assembly members to be allocated with a means of transport. I don't want no one to get me wrong here.
Yes.
I'm not saying we should get a car at the cost of 2.5 million. But equally, I want to recognize that it is equally important for National Assembly members to get a transport that would facilitate the movements from home to work and also their respective constituencies for safety purposes. Because what happened here is, even let's say prior for us being given this car, some of us were struggling to reach at work.
Yeah, but Honorable, I don't cut you short, but if you look at that, National Assembly members, they are civil servants like other civil servants. If they are located...
we are public servants.
Yes, you are public servants.
We are public servants.
Yes, you are public servants. So, but do you think it's not also fair to allocate car to other people?
You know, if you look at the level of the central government, there is a policy, even though maybe they are not enforcing the policy.
Yes.
But my brother, I can tell you from the honest opinion, this is one of the best policies government can even evaluate. Okay. Imagine the car given to me take me as an example.
Yeah.
The car given to me, it costs for $2.5 million.
Yeah.
I am paying $1,250,000
okay.
as a personal contribution. Government is paying $1,250,000 as their quota.
Okay.
But take it from this end. The fuel and everything, government is not giving me that.
Okay.
I am paying for the fuel, I am paying for the maintenance, I am paying for a driver in case I need one.
Okay.
And also, I want to believe this will help government. Because looking at the car policy, it says after every 5 years, government has to change fleet.
Okay.
So meaning government has to auction that particular car.
Okay.
After 5 years. And look at how we use government resources compared to our situation where we are paying part of the car, and after the 5 years of our term, the car will become a personal belonging.
Okay.
So that would tell you that every other individual would take great care of the fleet in ensuring that it's not damaged.
Okay. Okay.
Comparing it to government cars that you would see on the road, after 2-3 years, you know, you realize they are not in fact worthy on the road. So this is why I think this is one of the advantages of the scheme. I'm not disputing the cost of the cars might be at the higher side. I'm not disputing, because for me, every other opinion sounds positive, more especially the opinion of the electorates.
Yeah, exactly. And this is what we are.
So I think here what we can do is to advocate for repeal of that legislation.
Yeah, yeah. I guess, Honorable, this point is very important because looking at this car scheme, National Assembly members are paying half of the price, and the government is paying half of the price. And also looking at the increasement of the salaries, because National Assembly members, they are also part of the public servants who are having at least a good amount of salary compared to other people. And now if they allocate car for them, that's a good thing, you know. That's a good thing. So what the issue is, the electorate, the farmers who are there, the poor people who are there, the poor family who cannot have nothing to eat. This should be our concern. And I know most of the National Assembly members, this is their concern, but it's the law that you have made there. You cannot change it. I think the central government also need to look into these things. So thank you so much for that honest answer from this car package. Now we go to the national unity honorable, and to my own opinion, I think Gambians, we lack 100% unity in the country. I don't know what is your take on that. Because if you look at the post-election, since Jammeh has gone, we have seen a lot of things that is happening there. Talk about the security issue, talk about the police, between the police and the community. There are a lot of things that is happening in that country. And I don't know, and recent one, yesterday, what has happened in the country there, we pray that let their soul rest in peace. But what is the role of National Assembly for country to be united? Because a lot of things has happened in that country.
Unity is paramount, and having Gambians to unite should be a primary concern for everyone. However, for me, my belief is we need what you call a National Reconciliation Day. Reconciliation would be very key in the process of our development, because without a united force, we cannot really achieve anything meaningful, more especially in the 21st century. So for me, to start with, there should be a national reconciliation, more especially among our political leaders.
Exactly.
Because if you have a voice in the society, and in anything you raise your voice upon, you realize that the masses, the citizenry, always listen, and not just to listen, but then they always partake in that particular process. So before we can achieve anything as a nation, I want to believe that we should start with a national reconciliation and uniting every other Gambian under one umbrella. And for me, I want to challenge the political leaders. I want to challenge our religious leaders. I want to challenge our traditional leaders to see how, where, and when possible to have a national reconciliation forum, and if possible to have what you call regional or district reconciliation forums, wherein we can speak to one another, we can send in one positive signal, and above all, we can all come out as Gambians, despite of our political affiliations, to rebrand the Gambia as a country. As you have rightly said, yesterday we have actually seen what had happened, and for me, I think the entire country are mourning for the fact that what had happened is indeed very unfortunate, and the victims involved are young people who are very vulnerable, who are working towards the development of this country. So if they should be crucified like that, I think this is something that is uncalled for, and no patriotic Gambian should be associated to such a crime. And I also want to add my voice to the rest of the Gambians to pay my last respect and condolences to the families of the deceased, and also to the female officer who sustained injuries and been hospitalized to recover soon. But then it all boils down to national reconciliation and also working towards some of the reforms, more especially around security reform. We need a lot of adjustments around security reforms. It shouldn't just be the theoretical aspect of things. We should see some of these things, more of practical towards our men and women in uniform.
Yes.
We need sanity in that sector. But again, we should also ensure that we advocate for peace in whatever we are doing, more especially around our engagements, either with our party supporters, either with our communities, either with our respective organizations that we serve. So basically, it requires collective effort.
Okay. Yes, Honorable, to your own opinion, this is a wonderful answer. And to your opinion, do you think national unity or national reconciliation is going to be possible at this time in that country? If there are a lot of white papers that are in the government's paper, they cannot even implement those commissions that have been passed, the commissions, all those commissions that has gone, and all TRRC that has passed, and their results are there, no implementation of those results. Now, do you think without that, national unity is possible?
For me, I want to believe that there is still room for a possibility for a reconciliation or for unification amongst the citizenaries. And also looking at the previous commissions, for example with the TRRC, I know some of the victims are still a challenge in seeing government doing the needful to adhere to their plights. However, looking at let's say the white paper, part of it is being implemented.
Okay. I guess that's the network. Yes.
Yeah, some of they're implementing some of the things, trying to compensate some of the victims. But again, as I said, it all boils down to reformations of our respective sectors, being it the security, being it the justice, being it the civil service, you name it. There was a lot done over the past 22 years.
Exactly.
And in order to bring a productive system, then it requires a revamp of every other sector, and this can only happen if the reforms are implemented as expected. Even though they're implementing them, I think it is going in a very, very slow pace. But then there is still room for improvement, and equally there is room for citizens to kind of reconcile or unite for national prosperity.
Okay. For National Assembly members, is there anything that they can do to collaborate with government so that they can implement those findings that they have done, like TRRC, as you earlier mentioned? Some of those white papers results have been implemented. They are giving repatriation money to some people, but yet still we have a lot of things that they did not implement it. What can the National Assembly do so that government to implement all those things so that we can go back to national reconciliation? But because I believe that it would be very difficult for country to be united if people are working under the government, and those are the people who inflict pain on another people. You think that those people, they will accept national reconciliation, Honorable?
Yes. I wouldn't agree. I wouldn't really disagree with you that much to say, considering the pain that some of these victims has gone through. Some of them might really decline to reunite. But again, as Gambians, I think we have that soft heart, and we can really creation of, for example, the Jammeh Commission or the ERRC. And apart from that, we equally have a whole committee set up on security and defense and, other respective committees. And specifically, some of these committees are working tirelessly to ensure that the right thing is done by the government, and also to enhance that the reports that emerge from some of these commissions are implemented as expected. And I believe we wouldn't relent in serving that purpose as people's representatives.
Okay, that's very good. That's very good. And we hope that national unity, we can have national reconciliation as soon as possible so that we can move forward, because without the unity, reconciliation in the Gambia, it will be very difficult for us to go together, for us to prosper. What is your take on the police, Gambia police, calling on the civilians, calling on the people, most of the time calling them to the police headquarters, the police station, questioning them. At the end of the day, they will not send them to court, they will not prosecute them. At the end of the day, they will tell them that you go back, you'll be reporting to the police. What is your take on that?
From a legal point of view, calling someone for questioning might not be, infringing the right of that individual. The police have every right to call people for questioning depending on issues that might be a concern to security. However, one thing I always disagree to is police calling people for questioning and detaining them without charging them or without putting them before a court of law. I am totally in disagreement to that. I think if you call for questioning and it is found out that you haven't caused any crime, you should be allowed to go home. So in a situation maybe they found you one thing, all that they should do is just to charge the individual.
Yes.
And if the person needs a bail, you can be bailed. If not, let them just take you to the court. The courts have the jurisdiction to prosecute and, make a decision on issues of that kind. So for me, the police calling citizens and detaining them without a charge is a way to intimidate citizens or to silence citizens, not to really speak their mind. So for me, that is rather unfortunate and disappointing.
Yeah, on that note, what you have just mentioned there, is there anything that National Assembly is talking about such so that police can stop that? I don't know whether that has ever come to National Assembly about such, because we can see that's not part of democracy. If you call someone for questioning, at least you need to send the individual for court, for trial. But without that, you detain the individual there. And it's not 1, 2, 3. What is the National Assembly doing about that? Whether they knew about that or they wanted to do it?
The National Assembly is making efforts to address some of those issues. For example, last year, when the committee were out on monitoring on the usual tour, what they did was to even visit some of the police stations. And some of the concerns that emerge from that tour, because normally when you go for a tour and come back, you put up a report that you lay before the plenary.
Exactly.
And, some of the challenges they clearly mentioned in that report were having people to be detained for a long time without trial, having people being detained in conditions that are inhuman, detaining people without giving them food, in fact, to eat under the detention centers. And, that has even led to the committee recommending for some of these police stations to be renovated or rehabilitated, and also to increase the budget vote for the Ministry of Interior, more especially with the you have bread, you cannot even have butter or mayonnaise in it.
No.
So it's not realistic under the budget line. So, these are things that the committee or the National Assembly are making efforts to address. And some of these reports are not only limited to the National Assembly or to the plenary for their consumption. These reports are extended to the concerned ministry for them to address some of these matters. And as things progresses, then there are always follow-ups to ascertain whether those conditions have changed and whether the concerns have been addressed.
That's it. Okay. That's very good. That's wonderful. Honorable, we believe that we are all Gambians and we are all equal. We are all equals in front of the law. But now the issue is, and we are all looking for national unity and reconciliation. Now, but if Mr. X did something or Mr. X says something, the police will not call that individual for questioning. But if Mr. Y did something or do something, say something, the police will call that individual for questioning. Honorable, what is your take on that? You think that is fair, and we are all Gambians? And you think that will spark national unity? And what you have to tell for the police for that?
The truth of the matter is, unity before the law is very important. And the issue of selective justice should be the least that the police should engage themselves in. So for me, I wouldn't see that as a fair thing to do by making or doing selective justice towards citizens. So if A offended, I think that A or B should face the full pledge of the law. But then you cannot just say, A should be punished while B should be reserved. So it's definitely uncalled for.
Exactly. Okay, that's good. And as long as national security is concerned, what is your advice to the security sector and the government at large?
The security sector, my advice here is security should be a concern to every other person. And then moving forward would be looking at the security reforms. I think it has been long overdue that we ignore the reform around the security sector, and this is really costing us, because first and foremost that we need to do here is actually building public trust towards our security sector. Apart from building trust in between the citizens and the security sector, it is indeed very, very important as well in capacitizing our young men and women in the security sector, not just to capacitize them, but also to allocate them with the required resources that they need in exercising their duties.
Okay. Thank you so much, Honorable. Now, we are at the tail end of this interview now. Now, as you see, we have a lot of youths that have migrated from the Gambia to Europe. Honorable, you are a youth man. I know you have engaged in youth activities in the country, entrepreneurship, training youths, you have participated. Now we have a lot of youths, Gambian youths, especially the minors in Europe. What is your honest advice? What is your advice to those people living in Europe, especially in Italy?
My advice to young people, sometimes I don't really like using the phrase, let's say, migrants, because for me, traveling or migration is as old as mankind. People have been moving from one place to the other, depending on what their interests or aspirations are. However, if you are one that has interest country resides in, not just to serve as ambassadors, but then goodwill ambassadors. The other thing I will encourage my fellow young people, because I cannot be diverse from the youth in reality, would be young people in the diaspora would always ensure that they contribute to the national development of the host countries they are living in, and also to respect the laws of the nations they reside in, and also ensure that they capacitize themselves in diverse areas that would be evident to their lives and the lives of others. So basically for me, I just want to encourage every other young person, irrespective of which country you live in, to serve as a goodwill or a good ambassador by raising the Gambian flag high or high.
Thank you. I think this point is very important, and these are some of the things that I normally talk about in my videos, so that because when we behave bad here, they are going to say Gambians. So that will not give a good name to the country. So as Honorable rightly said, let's try and do what he said. This is very, very important. Everybody wants a good name. Every country wants a good name, so that the Gambian flag will fly high. This is very important. Honorable, before we leave you, what is your final advice or your final words to the listeners?
My final word would be very short and precise. That is to say, once again, thank you to Global Rainbow TV for availing the opportunity for this wonderful interview, and by extension to the listeners or to the viewers, and also to all your fans. And finally, I would say I would also seek forgiveness to every other person in case if I made any remark that I might offend someone in one way or the other without really knowing. So once again, thank you.
Thank you, Honorable. We thank you for coming to our live this interview. We are very happy to have you here. Thank you, Honorable. We leave you till next time.
My pleasure, brother, and thank you as well.
Thank you. Jammeh, the National Assembly member for Janjangbureh constituency. Now, that was our discussion, our interview. We all heard what he has said.